probably, you know, make this so you can't see the edge of my wallpaper, huh? There we go. Better. Okay. There we go. All right. Hello, everybody. My hair got all flat today. Oh. Sorry, guys. I've got two screens going right now, so I want to be able to see you. So I'll be, if you see me glancing down and looking at my laptop, that's where I'm looking. Just so you know, YouTube Live does have a little bit of a lag, so if you ask a question and I don't answer it right away, that is why. I probably haven't seen it yet. All right, so I see 3 of you here. Hello, hello. I have done some education for Salon Republics in the past, but for those of you that do not know who I am, my name is Caitie Kennedy. I am the Redken Regional Educator for Los Angeles, San Fernando Valley, Monrovia, Lancaster, Palmdale, Santa Clarita, Bakersfield, Calabasas, Thousand Oaks, whatever. All in that area. That's where I belong. I am a full-time educator now, but I have been a blonding specialist and a color correction specialist for almost my entire career, and I've also been teaching for most of that time. About 8 years out of the 10-year career I've been teaching in some capacity. Good afternoon, Grace. I can see your chats are coming through. So today we are going to be talking about color correction, and today's class is only about an hour. Those are the nice little snippets we like to do, about an hour to an hour and a half, depending if you guys have questions. I can stay a little later than an hour. What we're going to talk about today is color correction in a nutshell. What we're going to talk about is prepping a canvas for color correction, some consultation questions that you want to be asking, and also a really quick technique called a power paint is what we're going to go over today. It's one of my very favorites. It's a go-to of mine that I use a lot consistently. Let me see if I can find her. This is what a power paint looks like when she's done. Ooh, did not comb out that back curl well enough, did I? She was a fast curl today. But, so you can see here, this is what a power paint looks like when it's done. She was about a starting level 6 or so, a virgin level 6. 6, 7. Well, we'll say 7 to be safe. But mannequin hair doesn't lift very well. So this is if a client comes in and either has virgin hair or has a lot of ground to cover and you don't have that much time, power painting is going to get you the maximum amount of lift while retaining dimension in a balayage, foliage sort of look with the maximum amount of time or least amount of time spent. So sometimes that's all we got time for, and a power paint is great for that. It covers a lot of ground in a small amount of time. Okay, so for those of you that are here, the 3 of you, hi, sorry, my camera's being a little shyster today, you guys. It's just not wanting to play with me. There, that's better. Nonsense. Okay, so with color corrections, do any of you here right now, are any of you afraid of color corrections? Are you confident in them? What are some of your biggest fears with color corrections? Or better yet, what is something you really want to learn about color corrections? And I'll watch my little chat here. I have my little mannequin head for us today too. This is who we're going to be playing on. All right. Well, if you guys don't have any specific questions, we'll get started. Also, I am very chill. I'm a very chill educator. I'm very lax. So at any point, go into that chat, tell me what's up. Any of that's good. I'm very, very calm. I like to just hang out sometimes. So first and foremost, when we talk about color corrections, the most important thing is when you're talking to a client about it, maybe it's a first-time client. Splat box dye. Oh my gosh, you're so funny. I actually just did. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I'm obsessed with TikTok. I've been obsessed with TikTok all of quarantine. I know that it's like dubious at best, but I literally just did a TikTok about the hardest hair colors to get out of the hair, and Splat was the first one I mentioned, and you know it. And you know it. It's so hard. And that one got popular, so I guess that's a common one. So yes, Splat hair color. When we have clients that come in with really big whoopsies, right? Like Splat, or I do have a couple images of Splat that's absolutely terrifying. on my Instagram. But the most important thing when we're talking to a client about color correction is undersell, over-deliver. Grace says it's the devil. It do be the devil. It really do. It is the worst. Splat pink, splat blue, splat green, and splat red. Ugh. I've had to correct a couple. They're hard. They're really, really hard to correct. Splat is difficult. I haven't found any research to back up this claim, but again, I wouldn't be surprised. Allegedly, it has dye molecules more similar to fabric dye than to hair dye. So that is why it's so difficult to get out of the hair. So anytime with a client, undersell, over deliver every time. And the reason that's important is if you have a client with splat, pink, or red, or blue, or green hair dye come in, right? So I'm not even going to call it hair color because that's too dignified, right? It's hair dye. So with that, what's really important there is that you have to give them realistic expectations, right? We know those girls with splat pink that come in, they're going to be like, oh, I want to, like, I know that it's like pink right now, but I really want like this black to silver ombre. I think that would be really cute. And we're like, no, girl, you're not getting a black and silver ombre. It's not going to happen, right? So really being able to tell a guest what's feasible and what's not feasible. And also being able to communicate your price of that service. All of you guys, I assume, are Salon Republic renters, and all of you run your own business, right? You run your own business. So for that, you really have to safeguard your prices, and you have to be very diligent and you don't give people favors because you feel bad, right? Like, you charge what you're worth. Product is expensive, so is your time. So make sure that you're quoting people with color corrections correctly. Okay, so if you're not charging per hour for color corrections, I highly recommend doing so. And the reason I say that is charge a higher price per hour, so that way you can use the most amount of time that you need, that you quote them, right? And you're covering your cost for product and all of those things. So a very standard place to start is $100 an hour. If you've never ever done color corrections per hour, 100 is on the lower end in a lot of places in California, depending on where you are, but it's very standard. And then as you graduate through, for someone like me who eventually became a specialist, like this is what I did. I only did hyper blondes, reds, and color corrections. Those were my favorite things in the whole world. And I got to a point where it was about $220 an hour. And I built my book that way, right? Can everybody afford $220 an hour? Absolutely not. But the ones that can are more than happy to come to you. And you have to build over time, right? So I can't stress enough, for color corrections, I highly recommend they come for a consultation outside of their appointment, whether that be virtual or in person, to see really what you're working with, and then being able to quote them a price. And the thing is, when you quote someone a price, you quote that price, right? It has to be that price or under. You don't want to quote someone like, okay, it's going to be $400, and then you give them a $600 bill, right? Like, no, we don't do that. Some people also choose when they go per hour, some people don't ask for tips on top of that price. Some do. Again, that's completely up to you. Whatever works for you and your business model is what you should be doing, not what Susie next door to you is doing, because that might work for her and it might not work for you. Okay. So when I say something like that, if someone's like, okay, I have a budget of $400 and they have, 8 hours of work, I tell them in that 4 hours, this is what I can get done and this is what's feasible. So for my Susie girl that comes in with pink splat and wants a black and silver ombre, I will have to be very honest with her, right? And say, like, due to the nature of what you have in your hair, white, silver is not going to be in the cards for you today. It's just not. We're going to have to progressively get this out. And in fact, in the cases like splat and faria and hennas, things like that, you can't even guarantee you're going to be able to get it out 100%. Right? Some people have been coloring their hair with black box dye for 5 years. I don't know if you're ever going to be able to get to a 10, 11 to have those white and silver tips, right? So being able to communicate that to your guest. And a lot of people struggle with that, but the best way to do that is do a test strand. Okay? Do test strands on your clients, especially ones that love splat and the ones that love box dye and the ones who has God knows what in their hair. Because when you test strand their hair, they can't argue with their own hair. If you come back with that splat pink and you have that test strand, again, some people will cut it directly out of someone's hair. If your client's comfortable with that, that's usually traditionally what I had done, is if they have enough hair, I'll cut a little bit out just so I can show them what that is. Or you can do it on their hair in a foil packet, and you can just cover up that test strand with their natural shade after. Totally up to you, whatever works for you. A lot of my clients had no problem with me cutting just a little bit out of their hair, so that's what I did. So when you come back to them and you show them like, hey, I put lightener on this, and not only is it still pink, it's fried and it's snapping in half. We're not doing that. We're gonna cover it up instead, right? Or I'm gonna give you a more couture intentional pink, whatever you want. I like to refer to consultations in the color correction vernacular as you're the captain of the ship, okay? You're the captain of the ship, you have to call the shots, but we are also in customer service, so we do have to do it with a gentle hand. You can't just be like, no, I'm not doing it. I mean, you could do that if that's really your style and you really want to be that way. I don't recommend it, but you could if you wanted to. You just be like, no, I'm not doing it. No thanks. So the most important part of color corrections, thorough consultations. I can't even stress that enough and how important that is. You want to talk through all the possible options, right? I like to, when I say captain of my own ship, I go of this method of 2 choices, okay? It's psychologically proven that people like to have 2 choices. Any less than 2 choices, if they just have one, they feel trapped in that one choice, okay? If they have 3 choices or more, it usually gets to be a little bit overwhelming, right? It's just easier to pick from 2 things. So for example, our Splat girl, right? She's got pink. We did a test strand, and it's still really pink. Maybe a little bit softer pink, right? So that's when I would give her those 2 options, right? I would say, okay, here's what we can do. We can either lighten you up a little bit and either make it a more intentional pink, something that's a little bit more fun and funky and professional looking, or we can cover it up with something like this, whatever you so choose. If she wants to be deeper, like say her other option is to be an inky, really, really dark brunette, almost black. Those are her 2 options, right? You can give her 2, and that way she has the choice, okay? It's the same with, if you have someone that's been a black box dye forever, and you're lightening up their hair and you're talking about the process, you should inform them that, first of all, it's not going to be blonde in one sitting, right? You're going to have to go through these phases. Again, undersell and overdeliver. Say that she's most likely going to get stuck in the red-orange stage today. That's very normal, very logical place for her to get stuck. That's totally fine, right? So when we do that, we say, all right, so if we get to this point, would you rather be lighter and warmer or cooler and darker? Because that way she makes the choice. So say you choose, she's like, I don't want to see any warm. We all have those clients, right? We've all had those clients that are like, I would rather see green than warm. We have had those clients. Let me know if you've had those clients, because I know I have. They literally would rather see blue-green than see like a neutral warm. Right? So for those clients, when you give them that 2 option of like lighter and warmer or darker and cooler, when they inevitably choose darker and cooler, and you're done, you blow dried their hair, you've curled it, and they're like, it barely looks like it changed. It's really dark. It's really dark. And you say, okay, Sally, remember, I asked you if you would rather be warmer and lighter or darker and cooler, and you chose darker and cooler, and I told you that it wouldn't look like a big difference today if you chose that option. And they have to be like, right? That's part of color correction, is you have to manage expectations. That's the hardest part of color correction. That's how you're going to set yourself up for the best color correction you can have. The analogy I like to give is, imagine that your husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, whoever, your partner, for my non-binary people as they were, they call you and they say, oh my gosh, you know what? I respect you so much. You've been working so hard. I see you going to the salon every day and you can't take as many clients, so you're not even making as much money and you're 10 times more tired. And I just really respect you for all that you're doing for me and our family. And you're like, right? So they tell you like, okay, I got you a gift card to go spend some money at Sephora or Ulta or wherever it is that you go. And they say, all right, I'm going to get takeout from your favorite restaurant in the whole world. Favorite restaurant. Baya. She's like, I'm gonna go pick it up because again, COVID time, normally I'd say we'd go to the restaurant, and I know some restaurants are open outside, but we'll just say pick up for now. I'm gonna get a really nice bottle of wine or champagne for us, and I'm gonna get your favorite food from your favorite fancy restaurant, and I'm gonna clean the house and make sure it's perfect, right? That's what I want to do for you because I respect you and I see how hard you're working. And anyone with sense, when their partner says something like that to them, they're like, oh my God, I feel so valued. It's gonna be the best day of my life, right? What happens when you come home from work ready to like have this perfect meal, have this romantic at home COVID date night that you can make with your significant other or your partner, and instead he chose to go to McDonald's and forgot your favorite drink and basically didn't even get your right order? Chances are you're going to be pretty upset, right? You're going to be pretty upset. So the way I like to think about it is, with color correction, you don't want to sell your client the fancy, perfect restaurant, right? Because the truth is, if they have splat pink and they want their hair to be white blonde, they ain't getting that fancy restaurant. They're not getting white blonde in that day. It's not going to happen. It's just not physically possible. So don't hype them up that they're going to be like, oh yeah, I can do this, or oh yeah, it's totally possible, or oh yeah, we're going to get this. Because the truth is they're not. However, if you hype them up for the mid area, right? Like, okay, like your hair is this, I hope to get it here. And get them really excited for that McDonald's, right? Because all of us can agree that either chicken nuggets, unless you're vegetarian, in which case imagine a fast food vegetarian staple of your choosing. Like sometimes you just want McDonald's fries, and that's all you want. In fact, I started eating healthy again after this long quarantine, and I can tell you right now that all I want is McDonald's fries. So you want to get them hyped up for that. Like, yes, let's go get the McDonald's fries. That mid area. Because if you manage the expectations to there, they're going to be happy. Versus if you set their expectations so high and you only deliver at this level, they're not going to be happy. It's all about managing expectations, giving them reliable and consistent expectations at that. Show them Pinterest pictures of what is attainable in a day. Super important. Because otherwise, a good consultation for color correction is the difference between a bad Yelp review and the best one you've ever had for the exact same service. I promise you that. I promise you that. If you think that you did a 5-minute consultation, go do 5 minutes more. Usually my consultations for color correction are at least 15 to 20 minutes long, and they're usually standalones. Okay. Also, it's a good idea if they do standalone consultations before their service to take a deposit. I just recommend that because it is a huge chunk of time you're blocking out, especially in this COVID era. So make sure that you get a little deposit there to make sure that your butt's covered, because sometimes people don't like to show up to things, as we all know. By the way, have you guys had any, like, just out of curiosity, not related to color corrections, but are you guys getting cancellations, or is everybody showing up to their appointments? I'm just curious, that's all. I just want to know. I called my hairstylist and I was like, girl, I need a haircut. Shalom. Okay. Just looking at the chat. All right. So, first step of color correction after we talked about consult, right? We just talked about our consult, and there's a couple options I want to talk about that we kind of have a tendency to skip, and that is the pre-work for color corrections. So really, really important that you are taking the appropriate steps to work on the cleanest possible canvas that you can. All right, so I always recommend, before you start a color correction, to do a detoxifying treatment or a clarifying treatment, okay? In fact, all of my clients get one every 6 months because I just think you need it. I mean, think of all the smoke that's been in the air here in California. I don't know where you all are from, actually, but if you're in the California area, you know that it's been smoky as all get out, and it's been hard to breathe outside. Oof. So all the environmental factors on there, smoke, UV damage, anything to do with that. Then people are taking medication that surfaces up to the surface of their hair cuticle, right? Minerals, copper, hard water. Maybe they're a swimmer. All of those things are things you need to take care of before you even think about doing the whole kit and caboodle, right? So I highly recommend doing a pre-art treatment. And I'll grab a bottle of that here, which is this guy. Some of you might be Malibu people, some of you might use other clarifying treatments, whatever it is. I'll just speak to this one because this is what we have and this is what we use. This is a liquid, as you can hear. Unlike, those Malibu C packets, it's a powder, you mix with water. This is ready to go. And what you're gonna do is put it right into the hair at the shampoo bowl, clip it up. You can either let it sit at the shampoo bowl for 5 to 10 minutes, okay? Or if you really want a deep cleanse, they can be under the dryer for up to 45 minutes, okay? And then what you'll do is take hair cleansing cream over the top of it, shampoo it out, and you can literally see all the muck come to the surface. It's insane. It's so gross, but so satisfying. Like, full disclosure, I'm totally one of those like pimple popping people. Like, that's satisfying to me. So doing clarifying treatments like this, so satisfying. Okay. So what's really nice about those is you're gonna be able to really have the cleanest canvas possible. There's gonna be nothing on that surface that's gonna get in the way of lightening or depositing color, anything like that. Also, I don't know if you guys have ever had this happen. I know I have, is you put lightener on someone's hair and it processes that fast and it almost starts to smoke. It's happened to me with a couple of my pregnant clients. I don't know if it's maybe some supplements or medication they were taking, or people that have been really, really heavy on thyroid medication. That's another one. Just, So if you slough that medication off from the jump, you're not going to have that reaction and you're going to be good. Okay? That was an alarming moment. There was literally smoke. It was literally probably the most terrifying moment of my career. And now I don't play games. So definitely utilize clarifying treatments, all that good stuff. Do a pre-protein treatment if you have to. Whether you're a shot fix person, an Olaplex person, whatever that is, I understand. Using all of those will be to your benefit. Okay? All right. We have a quiet group of 4 today, but do you have any questions so far? Any specific situations that come to mind? Anything like that? Good. Everyone's so quiet today. I suppose it's Monday. Okay. So we are going to talk about power painting. Okay? So power painting is basically a combination of balayage and a bleaching tone. Almost. Kind of, sort of, I guess. So what this is especially with balayage, when you're balayaging hair, right, you're balayaging the surface of the hair if you're surface painting. And it leaves a cushion of depth in here, right? So if you're just painting on the surface of this remains dark, right? You're gonna have that cushion. That's what balayage should be. We don't want any bleeders going through there and getting cheetah spots. So what I love about power painting is I use a traditional lightener. So today I'm gonna be using Flash Lift with Bonder inside. And I'm gonna be using that in a 1-to-1 ratio because I'm gonna get the most lift and it's gonna have the creamiest consistency for me. And I'm also gonna put it in a foil to further incubate that heat. Okay. And as I said before, because I know there might be some newer people in here, this is what it looks like when she's done. I curled her really fast, so don't judge me. Her curl is not looking perfect at the present moment, so all that. But as you can see, the whole point of a power paint is the type of person that they want that rootiness. They want that depth at the regrowth area, or zone 1, as us Redkenites call it. But they want to get as much lightness as they can in one session. But they still want the dimension. Basically, they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want the dimension, they want the rootiness, but they want to be lighter, right? So as you can see here, she does have some rootiness up and through there, okay? But throughout, she's just got very ribbony dimension, nothing too crazy. Lots of dimension. Also, her tone was, I don't know if you guys are Shades EQ users, but she was a 10 GI with a cap full of 8 VB. I don't know if you guys have used the new level 10s yet, but they're so pretty. I love the 10. 10 GI is my favorite. Okay. All right. So there is that guy. Okay. So I'm going to mix up some color. If you guys want to enter anything into the chat for questions, anything like that, go ahead. I promise I don't bite, nor will I make you feel stupid at any point. So ask away. Or better yet, tell me which location you guys are at. Where in California and or outskirts of California are you from? Okay, we're gonna do 2 of those. Okay. All right. Put my little apron on here. You know, when I was behind the chair full time, I never wore aprons and would get so mad that my clothes would get destroyed all the time. And really, all I had to do was wear an apron. I was just stubborn. I tell you. Okay. Also, sorry if you guys can hear construction noise in the background. My apartment has been under construction since I moved here over a year ago. Okay. I'm also going to adjust my camera so you guys can see in really closely with her. You might not be able to see my face the entire time. Just know that's intentional. Okay. And my whisk disappeared into the fine night, so I am using my color brush, which normally I don't advocate doing. And I wouldn't be me unless I also took a moment to say, please measure your lightener. Okay? It's one of the things for me that I am a bit of, I'm a total rule breaker, don't get me wrong, but if you measure your lightener for consistency, you're going to have the best lift if you measure whatever the manufacturer's directions are. So for flash lift, it can be 1-to-1 up to 1-to-2, but you're going to get the most amount of lift at 1-to-1. And a lot of other lighteners are also like that. So if you're using a lightener and you're not getting the lift and you're eyeballing, could be why. Okay. I'm a scale person. I go through scales like crazy. I use them constantly. I like use them for all the things. Color, food, you name it, I use it. This here. I'm gonna bring this on down, bear with me. I want you guys to be able to see her. She's more important than me at the present moment. Okay. All right. So, like all mannequins, Educator's mannequins, she's got quite a bit going on here. She's got, you know, if you look at this side, she's a mess. But mannequins are the best because they don't complain. They love whatever you do every time, no matter what. All right. There we go. I'm going to isolate this back quadrant. And when I do any sort of balayage work, power paint work, anything like that, I prefer, instead of doing your perfect classic 4 corners, you know, where you would do a headband section right behind the ear. As such, I really like, if I can, depending on the head shape, I like to drop behind the apex of the head. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. Take this here. Show you what I mean. Okay, so traditionally, probably your quadrant would probably start at the top of the head down to the ear. So the reason I drop it back ever so slightly to the apex of the head is because, I don't know about you guys, but have you ever had that happen where you do a balayage and it doesn't flow as seamlessly into the back that you'd like, or maybe it looks a little dog-eared, something like that? So what's really nice about this is it has this curtain on top that's going to fall backward, giving you a really nice seamless blend. Anybody that says sectioning doesn't matter is lying to you. Okay? So, as I said before with power painting, I want you guys to think of what we call principles of foiling, okay? It is important, I promise. So, with foiling, we have horizontal placement, we have vertical placement, and we have diagonal back and forth, okay? So, it is important to know what one you're using and why, all right? So, for her, I'm going to be using horizontal placements up the head. And the reason I do that is because horizontal is going to provide us the most weight and coverage. I'd like to say bang for your buck, right? So if you're horizontal foiling someone, you're probably trying to get a lot of coverage. So for my people, like say if I wanted to go blonde tomorrow, I would probably do a microfoil horizontally, excluding around my face, all the way up. Because I know that I want to get the most coverage that I possibly can, right? Vertical placements are going to give us more contrast. So if you're someone that you really like that ribbony contrast, or maybe you really want to learn how to do the new modern chunk because the chunk is coming back, whether you like it or not, is happening. That vertical placement is going to give us the most contrast, all right? Then we have our diagonal placements, and our diagonal placements are also really popular in foiling, popular in balayage, and the reason is because diagonals create softness. Think about it being in between a vertical and horizontal. They just give you a lot of softness. So for our scenario here, she wants to be as light as possible, keeping a regrowth area, and as fast as possible, right? So I want to choose horizontal placement because that's going to get me the blondest, the fastest. It's going to cover the most ground, all right? So now when we look at her, come here. I know I'm going to go up pretty high on her hair strand, right? Because I want to leave her rooty, but I want to make sure that she's got a little bit of dimension as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to fully saturate a large portion of the section of her hair, but we're still going to leave a little bit of that traditional balayage cushion underneath to provide some natural looking dimension. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. If I can repin this to be doing what I want it to do. Good grief. All right. Let me see here. Again, I'm going to tilt down just a little more so you guys can see. You're not looking at my face. Also, yes, normally I would be standing right here, but I'm trying to make sure that you guys can see, so I am standing behind her. All right. So I'm going to take about 1.5 inches. 1.5 inches horizontal section. You guys can see that? Little over 1 inch. Keep in mind, these smaller sections you take, the lighter it will be, the more predominantly light it will be. The bigger sections you take, the more dark that's going to be left behind. All right? So, there we go. With power painting, I personally like to start fully saturating because I know for her, again, most of her is going to want to be mostly saturated because, again, we're trying to get the most light. So probably up to about her chin area is going to be fully saturated. So I just start doing that right away. That's why I said it's kind of a cross between a bleach and tone and a balayage. I know a lot of people see me do this at first and they're like, girl, what? No, that's too scary. It's too much. Okay, so I like to create almost a line initially to see where my full saturation is. And no, I will not leave it like that, I promise. So the other motion I'm doing is this. You see me crossing my fingers through the hair strands. So in the Redken world, we call that windshield wiping or myriad of other things. And as a general rule, I like to do it, but I'm just gliding over the top and the bottom when I do that, okay? Just gliding over the top and the bottom. And this is really important because if you're someone that does this technique or does the windshield wipe and you're clamping, this is a dramatic example, obviously, but what happens when you use too much pressure when you're windshield wiping, right? You're wiping all of that product off that you just put on. So it's really important to pay attention to your tension. It's really important to pay attention to, you know, how much product you're using and the amount of pressure you're using when applying it. Okay? So again, using that light pressure, I got it back to where I wanted it to go. Some people like to do this on a balayage board. Personally, for me, I'm what I call a tactile hairstylist. So I really like to get my hands in things. That's just who I am. I like to be able to feel the saturation on its own. Okay, so then I'm going to move on up. Again, applying color. Now, depending on how light she wants to be and how high she wants it to go up, right? We're going to start working our way up. Power paint, right? And there's a couple things that I want to draw attention to. If you can see this, there's a little bit of drag, what we call drag in here. It doesn't look very pretty, but it's those little, almost shorter pieces of hair, whether it's from breakage or anything else, if you can see it that way. Some people get really freaked out by drag because they feel like it's messy, it's gonna give them spots, all of these things. But in reality, drag is gonna help your transition look better because it's just soft little pieces of hair that are gonna help contribute to that transition area, okay? So again, here, I'm gonna go this way, so maybe you guys can see a little bit better. So the other thing I'd like to mention is when I'm building saturation, my brush is loaded and I'm going downward. Okay, I'm swiping downward as I go. But when I want to blend, I like to move vertically, okay? I move vertically because that is blending. It's gonna help decrease some of that saturation and push it upward, okay? So it's totally up to you on how high you wanna go up. Depends on what your client wants to do. But something to keep in mind here, I like to go a little bit higher on my blends than I would normally because saturation is the key to lightening. Some people will say it's the lightener itself, some say it's the volume. Honestly, for me, it's always gonna be saturation. And when you start blending up in this area, it is going to be less saturated than down here, right? Just because that's the nature of the blend. So just know that when I go in and I do her root shadow later, I have to compensate knowing that potentially, depending on how dark her hair is, how much color she has on it, that might have a banded area. So occasionally I do like to go up a little higher, knowing what will be covered and what won't, okay? And then what you want to do after that is flip upside down. See how harsh that line is right there? I don't want to leave it like that. So I flip, and then I do the same. Paint downwards, towards the face. Okay. And again, resettle. And voila, there's one section. Voila, voila, okay? So, at this point, you could choose to put this in a foil. You could choose to leave it. You could put it in cling wrap, whatever you want. If you want the maximum amount of lift, you are going to want to use foil because foil is the one that's going to conduct the most heat, right? So, even though this looks like so much and I fully saturated way more than I would with a traditional balayage, I still have a little bit of that cushion underneath in traditional balayage, right? Just a little bit of depth, which is going to provide me some natural dimension, and it's going to help diffuse that line a little bit more. This is also something you could do with a teasy light. If you're the kind of person that likes to teasy light, you could do this technique with a teasy light as well. Totally up to you. So again, I'll do an even smaller section this time. If you want a ton of lift, you can take a half inch to an inch subsection, and you can really saturate it and make sure that it is a blonde, right? Her little red thread. right? So that is really not a wide subsection at all. Totally up to you, depending, right? So something to keep in mind too, like right now, she's been colored so many times. She's got this really, quite a bit of a light piece in front. She's got this dark in back, right? So in real life, if she was my client, I might leave that light bit out, right? And just power paint this. Hello, Guillermo. I see you. Hello. I think is that how you pronounce your name? Guillermo Garcia? I hope so. So again, as hairstylists, we have to be mindful. We're the artists, right? So if this is too light and I'm not confident power painting this, maybe this is a piece of hair that's not quite light enough, but I'm not confident putting lightener on it because I don't want it to break. You could do something like Chromatics Clear in 20 volume on this to get it a little bit lighter without using a lightener. And keep the hair perfectly intact, while this darker piece might need a little bit more love. Needs a little bit more lifting, high lift, right? So, for something like this, we would repeat the same process. And that's what I mean with power paints go really fast, because you're traditionally taking bigger sections and you're almost applying it like a virgin bleach and tone retouch, but you're just spending a little extra time to blend towards that regrowth area, okay? Another really great thing to do with, excuse my reach, I'm sorry. I should have put this on my other side. Another really good thing to do with this as well is vary how high and low that blend goes, because it is, with hair color, the more you stack something, like say I want my blend to go 2 inches away from the regrowth every time. If you do that to every single subsection, every single time, you're creating a more dramatic line to blend out later, if that makes sense. So maybe one section you go really close to the regrowth, and then the next section maybe you're 2.5 inches off to 2 inches. It's going to give you more variation, and you won't have to rely on your root smudge gloss as much to blend. I am self-admittedly the root smudge queen. I won't lie to you. I love a good root smudge. They're my favorite things in the world to do. I love them on almost everybody. I think they're pretty. I think they just make hair look that extra bit a little bit more expensive, in my opinion. Okay. So again, I'm going to go in and blend that out here. Make sure it's nice and pretty blended. And go from there. Ooh. Okay. How are we feeling about those two sections? Good? Good, good? Okay. So then I can show you another variation. Say you have someone who wants some dimension, right? They want some dimension. I'm just going to do a wall sit. It's fine. Say there's someone that wants some dimension, right? That ribbony contrast. Not as much all over blonde like I showed you with our other LA mannequin over, or she's a, I don't remember what her name is from Pivot Point, but she's someone. Maybe not as all over blonde as her. Maybe she wants a little bit more ribbony, balayage dimension, right? Maybe she does. That's all well and good. So I'll show you another variation for that. Still fast. So you'll take your section down, and I want you to zigzag your section, okay? Just boop, 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 zigzag. About an inch probably as a starting point. And try to make it pretty dramatic. Again, I said it before, sectioning is important. See that zigzag? Pretty strong. I don't know if any of you guys lived through the 90s, but the zigzag part was real back in the 90s. I've like thoroughly debated bringing that back just to be a little bit of a smarty pants, but I'll let y'all rest in peace. Okay. So with this section here, right, we have our zigzag. Think of this as your high and low lights built in already. So what I like to do is come in through here and just slice off the top peaks of my zigzag. Sorry, I couldn't really see when I was doing that, so. Honestly, they don't say that when you want to become a hair teacher. The hardest part is making sure where your body is, people can see. So as you can see, I just cut the top of that zigzag off, right? Cut it off. I don't need it. So that leaves all of this to work as a natural low light. And this is going to be our ribbony dimension because again, even though I'm taking a horizontal section, these are all gonna lie vertically with space between them, right? This is my favorite way to cheat ribbony dimension fast. Because as we all know, in hair, time is money. Ain't nobody got time. Again, excuse my walk, I just put my thing in the wrong place. So again, here we see that. Cut that off. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna do the exact same technique. We're just doing it in more dramatic ribbons. Okay. So again, we're gonna come down here, paint, paint, paint. And we're gonna continue to do what we've been doing. So I think for some of you, if you guys are all Salon Republic people, which I assume you are, you're all small business owners, right? You're all small business owners, and time is money. You know that. And you're probably more advanced in your career, right? You're probably a little bit more advanced. You're probably feeling a little bit more comfortable with techniques. Maybe not all of them per se, but you're probably feeling pretty comfy cozy. So your challenge is when you take classes like mine or others, is to look at those techniques and learn how to modify them to what you want to make them look like, right? So this technique is a culmination of so many different classes that I've taken and different, placement classes I've taken. Because for me, I want to make these really expensive, time-consuming looks take a lot less time. Okay? So now that this is painted, I'm going to separate it so you guys can see it. Okay. So now already, just by taking that simple, easy peaks and valleys, right? And I could easily have done this in 3 separate sections, right? Some of you might be like, oh, I could have just done that in 3 vertical sections. But the truth is, it would have taken you just that much longer. Versus if you just do a really quick zigzag parting, cut the top of it off, and paint it all as one panel, it's a lot less time consuming than picking up individual smaller pieces at a time. Okay? 10 minutes left. How are we feeling? This is a fast class, y'all. I don't know how many of you guys use Shades EQ in here. I know most people do, but I can go over some formulation if you'd like. If you want to see another variation of this, we can do that. What do you think? You guys have been so quiet. I'm used to people yelling at me. Just kidding. Maybe not always yelling at me. Here, let me move this up. Ooh, God, the double chin. Lord, help me. So I'm eating healthier. Okay, so after you do something like that, as I said, I usually go in with a root tap and gloss on the ends. My current favorites are almost always my go-to shadow root, or whatever you want to call it, root smudge, root stretch, root tap, whatever you want to call it. I love the Shades EQ Gloss NB and NA series together. They are my very favorite. That's usually my go-to. I have a lot of other favorites as well, but that's kind of like my mainstay. If I want almost a charcoaly cool but not blue shadow root, I like to do 2 parts NA to 1 part NB. So 2 parts natural ash to 1 part neutral brown beige. Okay. If I want it to be a cool neutral, I like to do equal parts NB to NA. And if I want something like a natural warm but controlled, I'll do 2 parts NB to 1 part NA. Those are kind of always my favorite go-tos. I love those. I get asked a lot what my favorite root stretch formulas is, and it's that. My favorite root stretch on a beige blonde. Like think of like those really, really bright blondes, right? But they're not quite silver. They're not quite white. They've got a little bit of, you know, color in them left. I love the 09M as a root smudge or root stretch. It's amazing. It's amazing, amazing, amazing. Because again, our M series, if you haven't played with those, they are going to have a brown base. They're going to be in a brown to tan background color, okay? But they have a blue-green tone on top, so they're very mushroom brown. I like to say M is in mushroom. It's like the perfect kiss of cool. It's not flat cool because it's got that nice warm base in there or neutral base in there. It's really beautiful, especially really, really pretty on darker shades of hair that expose more warmth. They're so gorgeous. 2, 4, 7, and 9, I believe. Okay. What else? I mean, do you guys have any questions? You guys have been quiet, but we have, you know, a handful of minutes left. Is there anything you want me to cover? Will any of you try power painting? I highly recommend it. It's super fun. It's also something really fun when you just start painting and you get in the groove and then you feather and you paint and feather. It's a blast. I miss it. Man, no questions, huh? No preguntas. All right. I see you. Okay, so I'm going to brighten the chat. You guys, we're such a quiet crowd today. I will put my Instagram handle in the chat. So that way I have so many resources on my Instagram. Also, I'm going to put in the Redken education calendar. So there is Redken education going every single weekday from basically morning until night. Okay, so I teach on Wednesday mornings, 9 a.m. our time for now. I believe that's going to change in October to Tuesdays. And there's so many resources. Like we do color correction, we do specific shades, EQ gloss, we do redhead classes, brunette classes, you name it, we do it. Hair care, hair styling, all of that. We're doing all of that. So I'm going to put both of those in this chat bar really quick. Hold on a second. Oh my goodness. Oh man. Hold on a second here. Just being particular. Okay. Sorry about that. My computer just decided to log out. Okay, there we go. That's me. Okay. Oof. So if you go to either my Instagram, I promise I follow back. You can DM me at any time with any of your questions. I'm a workaholic. It's what I do. Also, feel free to go to the redken.eventbrite, and when you pull up that link, it all comes up. We have every sort of resource you could possibly imagine. So please, please, please do that as well. Okay? But I had a good time hanging out with you guys today. If you need anything at all, please let me know. I believe I'm doing another class with you guys in October or November. But, all right. It's nice to meet you.